Hi, I'm just going to go through a little bit of what I think about when I look at our GvG opponents. Because basically, when it comes to your high-end GvG opponents, so your top 100s, guild-wise, in general terms, there's three different sorts of opponents. I mean, this applies all levels, but more so at this level than any other. So your three different types of opponents are ones who you need, basically the full deck to kill. So Melita is a perfect example of this. For Melita, if you have the full BioBlitzer deck with the Dark Generation 3 GvG relic at least 3 stars, doesn't have to be any higher, you can just straight up kill this defense. You one-shot the counterattack. You on turn 1, turn 2 you kill, turn 3 you kill, turn 4 you take a tactical death against the Rilke, revive. That gets your resets on your battle skills back down. Then you kill Rilke, and then finally the auto heal in the end. There's no problems whatsoever with that if you have the full deck, because even though Gem Silence is incredibly scary, if it hits you, because you're killing it straight away, it doesn't have time to trigger, so it doesn't hit you. It's not a problem. So then your second type of deck, which... let me just find an example. Okay, so Strong Victork. He's a good example, he or she, of where if you remove the first defender, sometimes it will be the second defender as well, it becomes a very easy defense to kill if you have a Generation 3 deck. So, in this instance, counterattack is the problem. Counterattack, you either need to one-shot turn 1, or you need an immunity card, or you need to use the Earthslayer deck's passive after a few turns, as Kutch has shown, to use that passive on the 4th turn to remove the counterattack so you can attack freely and kill it without being killed yourself. If you take Sheriff out of the equation, then you're left with Urzo, which, assuming that you have a Revive Relic, which, if you're going to be taking on a 144k defense, you probably do anyway, Urzo is an Urzo lead is basically a free kill, because you kill the first 2 defenders, well, you kill the first 3 defenders without any kind of issues, and then the 4th defender is Drain, which does nothing, because you massively overdamage versus Drain, so it's not a problem. And I will come back to this second type, because this is the most important, and why I'm kind of giving this, my thought process. And then your last sort of defense, it's, anything you can just kill. So anything that is just unproblematic whatsoever. So it might be a non-ascended lead that you can just go straight past. Or you can just one-shot, or even something simple. So something like this, Strong Alfalfa 76, because he has a flatline lead, is a very easy kill. It doesn't threaten you as much. Yes, it's 156k, yes, you are going to need a Generation 3 deck, and that's fine. However, because it's flatline, because you're using that Revive Relic anyway, it just shouldn't be an issue. So, the key thing with the second type of GvG defense that I mentioned, with the defenses where you remove 1 or 2 defenders at the beginning and the rest becomes incredibly easy. So, obviously this can apply to any affinity, it just depends what attacking deck you have. But if you take... in fact, these two will do. So, Strong Sumegi, if you remove the first 2 defenders, in this instance, or possibly just the first, it becomes a very easy defense to kill, because Fear is obviously problematic. You have to kill it either turn 1 or turn 2, otherwise it's going to cause problems for you. So if you take Fear out of the equation, you just need a deck that can beat that remaining lineup. Ascended Alacrity, you have to either take a turn... either have to take an immunity or kill it turn 1, or use a deck that does not use a immunity, so one that just, or turn delay, one that just ignores the issue and just uses resets to kill it. Currently there isn't a deck that does that outside of the very kind of high tier Generation 3 fire decks, which use the Generation 3 GvG relic, which kill every earth defense. However, that requires a Dragoon that's generally specialized, preferably, and you're basically working on a tank logic, so you tank a hit, and then later you take a tactical death for your skill point reset, and you have the passive of the Generation 3 relics to give you double power gem spawn, which is how, functionally speaking, many of the Generation 3 attack decks who abuse those Generation 3 relics, that is how they work. So, one sec. So if you take those first two out of the equation, all you're left with is non-ascendeds. That's easy. And I know that may sound obvious, but there are some decks that can basically just go on essentially a suicide mission, kill the first defender, use all of their battle skills, like on turn 1 maybe, use all of their battle skills to kill the second defender, but they have no follow-up, and that's fine. Because if you can take out those two defenders and leave those 3 much easier to defeat defenders for somebody else, I mean, any Gemfall deck will kill those remaining 3 defenders, for example. And now that they've released Brute, you don't have any issues in regards to... Because obviously there's no flatline anyway that you have to worry about. So basically you take Brute for the revive, you take Juggernaut for the fact that he is not hindered by Gem Silence, or you could even take 2 turn delays. You could take Galena, Simargil, Brute Ominic, and 2 turn delays. You activate your 2 Fell Clan Sappers, wait out the turns for Gem Silence, and then on the turn that you can, you use Brute Ominic and the 2 Gem Falls, and you just kill the Abarca. Because I'm pretty sure that you have long enough to do that, and if you don't, you have 1 extra turn with which you can reactivate your turn delays to just continue on as normal. And then we have someone like Strong Monk. So this is a bad example of one that because it just doesn't work. It's cleverly set up with, and this is why it's very formulaic that you will see counterattack followed by either Gem Silence or Alacrity or Toxin. Less so Toxin, that's less important, but followed up by Gem Silence or Alacrity. To make that an easy kill, you have to get rid of the counterattack and the Gem Silence, unless somebody has Earth Gem Fall, in which case it does then become a free kill, and the Alacrity. However, if you know that somebody has Earth Gem Fall, then and they haven't used their attacks yet, then yes, take out the counterattack, because at that point, if they have Earth Gem Fall with Jaguar, they can just go straight past. They can just go straight past the Gem Silence and the Alacrity. They're using Jaguar to ignore the fact that there's Alacrity up, so they don't have to use turn delay. And again, it just becomes, a very reasonable kill. This is most prevalent for water and earth, just because of... Oh, and light, but that's because of the attacking decks that you use. Dark defenses, there's only really one viable Generation 3 GvG attack deck, and generally it can either kill or it can't. There is do or don't. There is no... Oh, it might be able to do it. It almost requires the Generation 3 GvG attack relic. So yeah, it's more difficult, and equally with fire, it's probably in an even worse position because of how awkward that particular water deck is to use. Just for GvG, just because it requires the problem with water is that it doesn't have an Abarca clone, an Abarca Thoth or Hell Beauteous Decay clone, whereas obviously Dark does, which it employs in some of the builds with the Bioblitzer deck. Earth Slayer, the Earth Creature Slayer deck obviously uses a Barker, and the Fire deck, generally the tank variant doesn't, but if you are trying to employ a non-tank variant, if you don't have the Dragoon, or you don't have the Dragoon at 6 stars, or can't specialise it into Fable, which is how that deck runs, even though or you don't have the GvG relic, simply, then yeah, you could potentially use Thoth, because 10 PG2s is pretty ridiculous, and all of the other cards that you are using in that deck are PG4 spawners. The Dragoon, if you have it, is PG4 spawner. The Ultimate Force, the Fire Ultimate Force that you use, is 8 PG4s. The Master Collection hero that you use from that deck, from the pigs, is also a PG4 spawner. So yeah, there is some potential there. But yeah, so I just thought I'd try and explain a little bit of this thought process, because obviously I've spoken about it in our deck building chat, but I've not really gone super far into it. And I've got to go because it's frenzy time. But yeah, any questions, just drop me a message online. I will be obviously quite happy to help. Yeah, please just ask. There really aren't any dumb questions, especially when it comes to GvG.